MASN's coverage of the 2023 winter meetings is brought to you by your Baltimore area Toyota dealers. For legendary safety and reliability, choose Toyota, and let's go places.
I don't know. Where's Mike Snyder? Are we prepared?
Prepared for whether we pick one or not.
It's probably a lot less likely than ever. We've got a really good roster, so that's a big part of it. This is also a Rule 5 class that is less populated than usual because the 2020 draft was only 5 rounds. So I'd say odds are that we don't, but I think my impression from our conversations thus far is we may have a player or two that if they're still left, we'd consider it.
Because so many of your, let's say, relievers don't have options and can't be sent down, and other players you don't want to send down, would that also factor into your reluctance?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor. If we're looking at bullpen considerations in the Rule 5, this group is more kind of mature in their careers now, and a lot of them are either unoptionable or just people that are unlikely to be options, and it's something that we're cognizant of. And on top of it, we may be bringing in more veteran relievers on some type of inflexible contract. So we'll keep that in mind, but that's definitely something that we've had talks about as we're planning the pitching staff.
Brandon was talking earlier about when you look at a young player like Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson, anybody of that, caliber, it's not just their playing ability that tells you when they're ready for the majors. It's also, their maturity level and how you think you're going to do up there, just handling the pressures and everything else that comes with it. Is it just a gut feeling? Like, how do you evaluate whether a player is ready to handle all that?
Well, once they get through our minor league system, I mean, we know them so well, so you start to hear different things about their wiring. But it's something that we've emphasized quite heavily with our high picks, and it seems like we're doing pretty well with it thus far. And it's the hardest factor to measure, but it might be the very most important factor for people either reaching their ceilings or being disappointments is kind of what's going on between the ears. So we do the best that we can with it. We've been really lucky with this group. It seems like they're all so mature. And I think it's a big part of the identity of the team. So we're going to do the best that we can to keep populating the team with people like that.
Does it start when you're looking at the draft, when you're interviewing them before that? Is that part of your evaluation then too?
Yeah, it's hard to do. So we just found out we're picking 22nd, which it's a pretty high pick coming off of a 100-win season. But when you're that low in the draft, it's not easy for a general manager to get overly involved. Although we were able to this year with Bradfield get a sense that he might be in play and get to know him pretty well. So it's possible. But anyway, you can't do it with every draft pick. But when you're picking really, really, really high in the draft, I've learned how important it is, and we put a ton of time into that.
With that pick, you mentioned number 22, and then you have the prospect incentive pick, and then another competitive balance pick that you guys are going to continually get year after year. Do you think you're assuming you're going to be picking lower in the first round moving forward in the 20s? Do you think those extra picks and just overall that's going to help you sustain the health of the organization, the health of the farm system moving forward?
Yeah, we'll take all the picks MLB wants to give us, and we need them. I mean, you look at the finances. There's a lot of disparity in baseball, and there's a lot of markets that have been identified as ones that should receive competitive balance picks, and we're one of them. The last two have been the last two Comp A picks have been Dylan Beavers and Jordan Westberg, I think. So those are huge prospects for us, I think it's an important lifeblood if you're Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. So we appreciate that part of the system, and honestly, I'd like to see it be more because that's not. It's a drop in the bucket, I think, compared to some of the market disparities that we have.
What's
Are
allowed
they
you
being
guys?
awarded today, Mike? The competitive balance picks, are they being announced today?
They just did the draft lottery, and like the first round happened, and we're 22nd, and then we're getting a pick for Henderson winning the BBWA Rookie of the Year. 32, and then 30. I don't know which one is Henderson's pick and which one is the competitive balance pick, but we have 32 and 34 and 22. So we'll be.
Supposed to be 32, I think it's the
Is the PPI?
PPI pick thing.
Yeah, so we'll be strong players in that part of the draft by all appearances, and that'll be fun. I think I've said that's kind of our goal, to be a 20s kind of team. You know, that's a good thing.
What's allowed you guys to have success? You mentioned Westberg, Gunnar Henderson was a guy you got in the second round. Everybody talks about rebuilding teams and the importance of hitting on those top 5 picks, which you guys have done, but also those later picks in the second, third, fourth round. What's allowed you guys to have success in those rounds specifically?
We have a good staff, a ton of experience in the draft in particular, and in player development. It's an organizational thing. It's about the people that work for us in analytics, scouting, player development, and you know that's really what it boils down to. And I've been very proud of the outcomes that we've gotten on these drafts and development projects in the last 5 or 6 years. It's been critical. I mean, if we'd done anything less, I'm not sure we'd be in this position. It's been the driving factor of our having a successful rebuild has been picking productive players, but also developing them at the top of at a state of the art rate.
At some point, you're not going to have the number 1 ranked farm system in baseball. That's going to go away. But do you feel like it's sustainable to? Is it a goal for you guys to have a really good product on a major league field, and then perhaps maybe still a top 10 farm system? Is that kind of where you're hoping that this can end up in sustainable long-term future?
I think like you said, you have to accept if you're looking at rankings, there's going to be some ebbs and flow in that as players graduate, and I can promise you this: it will not dry up, and we're going to be a first-rate scouting and player development organization as long as the people that are in this room are here being in charge of that. And whether that's top 10 or 11th one year or something, I don't know, but I can point to other franchises that you don't necessarily know where they're ranked every year, but you know that they do a good job in scouting and player development. It's just part of their identity, and I think that's the Orioles.
What's the latest on the Dominican Academy? Is that open yet?
It's going great. It's not open yet. It should open this winter. We're making some plans there. I just visited it a couple of weeks ago. It looks phenomenal. The buildings are up. The fields are out. It's in a last kind of stage of construction, and it's going to be a really, really cool facility.
You had 17 arbitration eligible players. You signed 4 of them, and then you offered contracts to the other 13. Going into the process, was that your aim to keep all of them?
I think that we looked at it. I mean, we ended up keeping them all, so clearly that was a possibility that we were preparing for. You have trade discussions leading up to that. You may do things that would result in a different decision, and none of that happened. But these were all players that we wanted to keep. We wanted to keep them in the fold through the arbitration process. I think it's an earmark of having a really young roster. When you see some of these teams that have these massive arbitration classes, it's often Tampa, Milwaukee, Cleveland with their young teams, and so I view it as a positive thing. It's not going to last forever that way, but these are good players that have value, and the system affords us this ability to control them for several years.
Are there any prospects in your system that you're not willing to trade away? That if a team comes calling, you're just like, I'm not trading that guy?
I can think of at least one. Yeah. We there's several others where it's quite unlikely, but in terms of who we wouldn't trade for all the tea in China, there's a lot of people on our major league team, and that there's people in the minors too.
You mentioned last year the difficulty of like a major league major league player trade, considering you don't want to take away from your major league roster, and because you guys were going to compete. Obviously, that's the same case, coming up this year. Has that calculus changed at all? Are you perhaps any more willing to make a trade that includes players that are on your major league roster?
Yeah, it's been coming up a lot in our trade talks. I mean, we got a really talented team now, and they're young. So even though they're technically not prospects, there are players that have several years worth of value to outside onlookers, and they inquire about them quite a bit. I think it's hard to line up on those trades. It's got to be kind of a demographic difference usually, but it's been coming up a lot, and it's definitely not something that we're taking off the table.
You talked about available outfield playing time and how Hick's gone up here as a fourth outfielder. Do you view Colton Cowser maybe as a top candidate for that spot now that he's tasted the big leagues and maybe learned from it and could break camp with the team going into this year? Yeah,
we have a lot of candidates. We got Cowser, we got Heston Kjerstad, we got Kyle Stowers, we got McKenna. We've got a lot of internal outfield options. I still see a ton of playing time and a lot of at-bats outside of our three primary outfielders, Mullins, Santander, and Hayes. And right now this is up for grabs. But these guys, I don't think any of them have really proven it yet at a over a long period of time in the majors, and so we're cognizant of that. And if we can find external insurance or external help in this department, it's not going to close the doors for those guys, and it wouldn't be unwelcome from our end either. Competition's good, depth is good. These seasons are so unpredictable, and our three primary guys, I mean, knock on wood, but there's odds are you'll get some injuries. So, we got to prepare for all that. So we'll talk to free agents that might be a fit for joining our outfield mix. But we have high hopes for the names that I mentioned.
Stowers a guy you'd like to see get a reset because he started slowly, then he got hurt, and it was just kind of a lost year there.
Quietly had a really good year, and he missed a lot of time after getting beamed in the face, which was awful, and it was terrible timing too in terms of him getting a look in September, which was something that we were hoping to do. But this guy is still has his whole career ahead of him. Huge power tool. He's big and athletic. He plays the corners well. He can throw. There's a lot there, and it's kind of an under the radar person that could be a factor for us this season. And I think the fact that we have a talent like that and he doesn't get a lot of attention speaks to the depth that we have in the system.
How much do you see?
Go ahead, I'll go next.
How much do you see Heston? Obviously, the bat has been there, but do you see his biggest improvement that he needs to do maybe in the field, or do you see him maybe as a first baseman in the future, or what do you kind of see him as an outfielder / first baseman?
So we've been continuing to develop him at first base, and we're continuing to do that. I don't have plans or designs on him becoming a full-time first baseman. I think it's something more that we're trying to get it to a point where it's in his back pocket and we can tap into it a couple days a week. And I think we saw, you look at Ryan O'Hearn, for example, the ability to kind of bounce out between first base and the outfield. It just opens up avenues, and it's for his sake as much as it is for ours, for Heston's sake as much as it is for ours, for his career. He's an outfielder primarily by trade. I think that he is he's a good defender in right field, like in the dimensions of Camden Yards. He's not a center fielder, but he's with the stick he brings. It profiles well in corner outfield, and I think right field's a good spot for him. He can throw well too.
Do you view McDermott and Povich as guys who are on the cusp of helping you if you have a need this year? And overall, what is the state of your pitching development right now, do you think?
Better and better. I think you know, Matt Blood and his group, and Chris Holt, and our pitching coordinator Mitch Plasmeyer, and everybody on the strength and conditioning side. We have slowly and quietly and steadily kind of built out a really first-rate pitching department. We've got the lab. We've got all the resources of you know, a large market team, and as it pertains to pitching development. We got the wherewithals of whoever you want to name, and we're starting to get some external recognition and some objective recognition for the gains that we're making on the farm with our pitchers. And this is with almost negligible draft investment and no international program until a few years ago. So, you know, they're doing a lot with some really raw clay, and it's been nice, and that's a big importance to us. So I think our plan with McDermott and Povich is hopefully we can bring enough in on the major league side to where we can prioritize their development rather than an emergency major league need or something like that, because they both got to AAA, but I don't think their work there is done, at least from what we've seen so far. But they're in really good spots, and they're you know, two of the better pitching prospects that we have right now that are pure minor leaguers.